What was the worst thing a kid ever did at your school? This happened when I was in high school and was a huge scandal. An 8th grade kid who was really good at basketball was allowed onto the varsity team. I guess being the youngest made him a target for some of the guys. 2 of the guys held him down, and a third jammed his fingers in this poor kid's behind. I'm not really sure of the punishment for the guys that did the assault, but they never came back to school for the next 2 years I was there. One of them became a pill addict and lives in the woods in my hometown. The kid who was assaulted went to private school after that. I ran into his brother at some point after high school, and last I heard, he was in a good college, so hopefully he's doing alright. We are starting strong, aren't we? What an absolutely disgusting thing for someone to do. I don't understand how these people find 2 other people who are on board with this plan. How can 3 separate people look at this or hear about this and be like, yeah, that's a good idea? Just disgusting. Story 2. In the 7th grade, this kid who was always getting into trouble with one particular teacher accidentally knocked her down the stairs during the noon lunch rush. She was 8 months pregnant and miscarried. Whether it was intentional or not was a hotly debated topic in our class all through the rest of our school days, which he was a part of because the only punishment he got was detention for running in the halls. Story 3. Varsity football had an assaulting gang against freshman players for years. Principals and coaches knew, but didn't do anything to stop it. Local PD came in and arrested every player, as well as the principal and head coach. Most of them walked free, and the coaches or principals were shuffled off to other areas. There was a small vocal minority in the school and the parents' groups that tried to get a mass walkout to stand in solidarity with the players, but they were mocked pretty hard. At least there were some consequences. All of the players I'm aware of who signed with schools had their scholarships and deals pulled. A lot of people red in the face over that. A few years ago, I had to go back to get some stuff from a buddy who's now a teacher there. Lo and behold, the head of security was a guy I went to school with and one of the players who had been arrested. From our brief conversation and what I saw, he never went anywhere after graduation and was still wearing his Letterman jacket. This is something that I hear about and I just can't fathom. How does this stuff go on and no one cares? What are people afraid of in terms of fighting against it or speaking up? Or do they even want to? There's no way the adults involved, the coaches and principal, would actually think this is fine, right? And how did they all walk? How does that make any sense? Absolutely revolting behavior. I feel like this thread is going to be a lot of this, huh? Story 4. Sophomore year of high school, my shy/bookish cousin started dating this really popular guy. A few months in, she heard a few guys in his circle were spreading rumors he was only with her because she, quote, did whatever he wanted whenever he wanted, which was ironic because they hadn't done much of anything at all yet. She was really hurt. She has never done anything to these guys. She didn't get why they would be trying to smear her reputation. I told her that her boyfriend should be the one dealing with it since they were his friends. She said she didn't want to bring it up because she felt like there was a distinct possibility he had started the rumor in the first place. Anyway, it turns out he didn't start the rumor, and he made his friends shut up by threatening them. He threatened to beat one of them up, told the second one if he ruined this relationship he would screw his girlfriend, who used to be his girlfriend, and he threatened to out the third one. That last one I only found out about after high school, when he finally emerged from the closet. Not the most ethical means, but it did the trick, and he and my cousin are still together. Probably the most devoted couple I know. Story 5. My school had special needs kids with their own classes. A small group, 5 I think, of students decided it would be funny to force a kid with a Down syndrome to dance for them by surrounding them, shoving them, and throwing rocks. Absolutely terrible. But when this was discovered, the reaction to the students that did this from the other students in the school was overwhelmingly negative. So they never did that crap again. Story 6. A kid put pH indicator in a teacher's drink while they weren't looking. Most pH indicators, and this one in particular, have a benzene in them. That's toxic. Teacher had to be rushed to the ER but made a full recovery. Another kid tried to do a backflip to impress the other kids and kicked a sprinkler and flooded the building. Nothing happened. He was an administrator's son. One kid almost OD'd boofing vodka in the bathroom. A kid ate a Carolina Reaper from someone's garden whole at lunch and had to be rushed to the ER to get his stomach pumped. 3 girls in my graduating class dragged a random guy into the woods and tried to hit him with their car. They only found out after leaving him for dead, and someone found the dude and got him to the hospital. When police asked them about it, they said they were bored. A kid was building a makeshift gun and had plans to shoot up the school, but a teacher found his manifesto on his school drive, and we had a line of police around the building for a few days. Hard to say what the worst crap was that happened there. So much tragedy. Story 7. My best friend's brother wanted to do the next big Columbine. He was always an intense kid. 4chan troll without an internet to scream at. So he'd constantly go for shock humor, usually about banging corpses or building a dungeon. Red flags like a 50s communist parade that no one wanted to address. If he was home when you visited, you just knew he'd find a way to hurt you, and that was just part of life. Everyone knew it, but there just weren't any bigger fish in the pond to put him in check. To this day, I wonder if there was something I could have done, but even if I somehow managed to violently put him down a couple of times, I know he would have just escalated it. Then I got my big confirmation of that thought. One day, we were in his house playing Ghost Recon on the original Xbox in the room for the oldest 3 boys of the family. Then we heard pounding, breaking, shouting, and boots. Team of sheriffs kicked in the door, and then my brain went into shock mode. Just lights, guns, and people moving faster than I'd ever seen a person move in my life. Lots of pain and emotion later, I'm in zip cuffs on the lawn with most of their family. Lots of screaming. Eldest brother was trying to fight his way out, which was a terrible idea. I was too scared to comprehend anything other than I seemed to have been shoved down, cuffed, and carried outside. I remember thinking it was possibly my fault somehow. I had to have done something or said something to the wrong person. I did actually get grounded for being there, but that's a whole different thing. Turns out the brother had a small arsenal of guns under his mattress, and a handmade blueprint for his attack on the school feet away from us. Never learned where he got the weapons or how. He was put away for a long time, and I heard he washed out of basic training for being that guy who thought he could fight a drill sergeant. Spoiler alert, you absolutely can't, and you're not the first to try. After that, I really started zeroing in on that kind of personality. Made my life easier in some jobs, but in everyday life, I still find myself studying most guys I meet like an idiot trying to analyze a serial murderer, and it's definitely made me miss out on some healthy potential relationships. Anyway, screw that guy. Story 8. At lunchtime, a kid was about to sit down with his lunch. One of his friends held a pencil facing upwards on his seat just as he was about to sit down. It stabbed him right in his left butt cheek. The scream has haunted me ever since. A whole crowd gathered around as he was taken away in an ambulance, and we never saw either kid again. Story 9. Poisoned the science teacher's chinchilla. There was blood all over the cage and the animal's mouth, but thankfully the poor thing lived. Never found out who did it or what they gave the animal. This teacher was popular for all of the snakes and feeder mice he kept in his classroom, as well as the chinchilla, but after that, no one was allowed in the classroom without the teacher present. Story 10. Year 5. The girl I had had a crush on since year 3 brought a birthday card for me and had everyone in my class sign it. I was so excited because I was the unpopular kid in my class. When I opened it, the card said, "Sign if you hate my name," and kids in every class in my grade had signed it. I just barely got outside of the school before I started crying, and I cried until I went to sleep that night. It's insane how cruel kids can be. Like, yeah, this isn't nearly as bad as some other things in this thread, but that is one of the most personal, cutting attacks. And I'm assuming year 5 is the equivalent of our 5th grade, which is just insane. That's the right age to know this would hurt, but also you should know it's wrong, but maybe you don't yet. So there's plausible deniability about morality, but really, you should know that's wrong. Story 11. A boy I thought was my friend made some cow print wallpaper to cover my locker, and about 300 kids laughed in my face when it happened. I wasn't even fat. I wasn't super skinny, and he did it because he secretly wanted to bang me. I was 14 and he was almost 18. Got left back because he was beyond stupid. So I was completely terrified of these boys. He gave me a ride home one day, shoved his tongue in my mouth and grabbed my breast super hard. I liked him but pushed him away and said I was nervous because I'd done basically nothing up to that point with anyone. I guess he decided I needed to be punished for that and got a lot of people in on the joke. People mooed at me for the rest of the year and I couldn't eat in front of anyone because of the taunting. I spent the next decade struggling with an eating disorder. I bounced back and he died in jail with 0 teeth left in his head from drugs. Oh, and he was in jail for groping women in a party city after doing an insane amount of whippets. I can't say it was sad to hear of his passing. Anyway, screw those jerks. Their hearts were trash and life always finds a way of catching up with people like that. Their only contribution to this world was showing us exactly how not to be. Story 12. In elementary school, a kid, they never found out who, threw a pencil on my bus that ended up hitting a girl in the eye. It was the outer side of her eye. She had to wear an eye patch for the rest of the year, but there was fortunately no permanent damage. Story 13. My friend from theater ended his life in the school parking lot with a shotgun one night, right as we were performing the final night of our play. All of our families and friends were there. The whole auditorium was locked down and no one knew what happened until after. He was a nice guy. He gave me rides home from play rehearsals and was always really kind. I never knew why he did it. Story 14. We had a phantom crapper after every bathroom except one on the far side of the building was closed because kids were smoking weed in the bathrooms. Crap in the hallways / on the stairwell 2 or 3 times over the course of a week or two. They reopened the bathrooms after that. Pillhead kid cussed out a teacher over basically nothing. I think he forgot his book and she told him to make sure he brings it from then on, and called her an idiot and a ton of other horrible things, and made some terrible comment about how he hoped her unborn child died in the womb. She was a sweet lady and was crying for hours, but still didn't leave. She continued to teach while extremely upset. There was a teacher who was sleeping with several male athletes, who was arrested for having coke and other drugs in her purse. This was many years after I graduated, but still crazy. She was teaching when I went there. Freshman football player was assaulted by a ton of football players in the locker room a few years back. You know, the usual stuff. I could probably think of more if I really thought about it, but those are the first that come to mind. Oh, and also, it was a rumor, but apparently a girl was doing coke in the bathroom at junior prom, and the fire alarm was pulled to cause a distraction to get her out because she was the vice principal's daughter, and they wanted her to get out of the building without anyone seeing her screwed up on drugs. Story 15. 3rd grade. Someone, the culprit is still unknown and on the loose, brought a snake into class and just put it on the floor. Once someone noticed, we were all instructed to stand on our desks until someone came to remove it. I'm sure it was a harmless garden snake or something, but at the time, this was horrifying. Also, 2 of my friends put weed in their calzones and home ec, and it ended up fishbowling the classroom. That one is more funny than the worst. Oh, and now that I'm thinking about it, 2 kids pleasured themselves on a girl on the bus. One of them transferred schools and the other continued to thrive as a jock bully. Also, a 15-year-old kid ended his 11-year-old sister's life and his parents and dragged their bodies to an in-law residence they were building behind the house. Then had his girlfriend come stay the night. Guess I have a few. Story 16. We had a school dance when I was in 7th grade. The oldest age in this school was 13 in 8th grade. A bunch of kids apparently decided to have a get-together beforehand where they all got totally wasted. Then they went to the dance and vomited all over the place. I wasn't there, but from what I heard, it was projectile all over the place and the dance ended pretty fast. Dances were banned for the rest of the year. They brought them back the next year, but there was a cop standing outside the door looking at everyone's eyes and sniffing our breath. I remember him stopping me, getting his face kind of close, and then saying, okay, go ahead. Story 17. Not the worst thing, but the most ballsy. My 15-year-old friend beat up a man who assaulted her on the public bus. She was a track runner and had her running spikes in her bag. She used it to slap the crap out of the man. The police questioned her in school and we thought she was going to be charged or something. She didn't get in trouble, but the man did, as there were CCTV cameras. After that incident, it's like a switch had flipped. She was pretty quiet and timid before, but after that, no more. She started screwing men up on the bus who'd grope her. She'd break their fingers, elbow them in the teeth or eye. She moved to another country and is quite a badass. Story 18. Technically middle school, but a young man with a lot of troubles was on the run from the police in a stolen car and decided to try to take his own life by car crash, also in the process ending the lives of a young mom and her daughter. In high school, a classmate ended up on one of the trashy talk shows as an out-of-control teen for breaking his mom's arm when she took his Nintendo away. I ended up working with that guy years later and he'd overcome his issues. He was doing well. What was sad is that while what he did wasn't right, it was spun for publicity. His mother was an abusive drug addict whose boyfriend beat the hell out of him too, but they were poor, so nobody paid attention. His lashing out was more a result of those years of abuse recycling themselves than out-of-control teen. Sorry, OP. Middle school? Some kid in middle school was on the run from the police in a stolen vehicle? something went very wrong in that childhood. Story 19. Back when I was in high school, it was very cliquey. Jocks, popular kids, nerds, the goth kids, etc. One of the football jocks had broken his leg at a game and had to have a cast on it for a while. At my high school, there were 2 buildings for classes and each was 2 stories. Since he had a broken leg, he would use the elevator that each building had to go from the first floor to the second floor, versus using the stairs. Apparently, he had lured a girl in the same year as everyone else, we were all juniors at the time, into the elevator to give him head. They weren't together, just some random girl. What the poor girl didn't know was that he was taking pictures of her going down on him without her knowledge. And once they both left the elevator, he had sent all of the pictures he took to his buddies and everyone on the football team. Of course, word of mouth and gossip traveled fast, and the principal and some other people at the high school had to get involved. I remember seeing the football jock coming back into class with a crap-eating grin on his face. I don't know the specifics and why it happened this way, but I remember then finding out that the girl was expelled and the football jock got away scot-free. Suffice to say, there was a lot of backlash, and all the girls at that high school were not happy. Story 20. In study hall, and one of the seniors, a huge Viking of a man with unstable emotions, said he had to go to the bathroom. Study hall monitor said no. Student said he really needed to go. Monitor got snarky with him and accused him of not really needing to use the bathroom, just wanting to leave study hall early. Student said he would have an accident if he wasn't allowed to go, and monitor was basically like, "Yeah, sure, boss." Student shrugged and proceeded to take a man-sized crap in his own pants right there in front of everyone. Maintained eye contact while the deed was done, too. It was exceedingly obvious he crapped himself. The smell was awful. Monitor was appalled and ordered him out to the bathroom or the nurse to clean himself up, and the kid refused. Just sat there in it until the monitor called the school resource officer. It was a literal and figurative crap show. Am I supposed to respect this? I don't actually know. I think so. Because first of all, who says no to I have to go to the bathroom? You do not make the judgment call of I don't think you're telling the truth. You just let them go. The risk reward is simply not in your favor. But damn, he actually did that, huh? A senior. In high school, I assume. Hope he didn't say. I mean, sure, man. Story 21. Called in a bomb threat from his cell phone. But what makes it worse is the administration moved all the students to the gymnasium. Then I guess someone with more brains figured it wasn't a good idea to bunch all the kids together during a bomb threat. So they evacuated us to the soccer field. Story 22. One student took his own life in 10th grade. I barely knew him or his circumstances, but I had a really hard time with that one. Beyond that, a 10th grader decked our algebra teacher in class because the teacher called him a liar. One shot and Mr. Teach was on the floor. It was unheard of at the time, early 80s. P.S. That kid recently retired as the chief of police of a local town. Story 23. A kid rubbed his dong on a row of lockers in middle school. The kid who had a criminal record at 16 kicked a soccer ball into a sprinkler head and flooded the gym. Coincidentally, that's how we found out the gym floor was slightly slanted. The visiting team got steamrolled by our basketball team, and they were so mad they broke a toilet off the wall and crapped in the urinals. The visiting locker room is also the locker room for PE class, so that was a fun discovery for first period gym. Lots of drug-related bullcrap, but I never saw any of it. And the rich kid drove his dad's expensive sports car to school on the last day of senior year and flipped it into a ditch. A nice little sampler pack of stuff for our final story of the day. Also, blows my mind that people were in there using the facilities and they weren't cleaned before the next day. Although I guess I don't know how the cleaning cycles like that work. Maybe if it was in the middle of the week, it's only done on weekends. I guess that would be fair enough, but still, an unfortunate surprise. You're right, OP. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.